cryptocurrency is a very interesting story. Back in 2015, when I was in college, like I'm just 25. So back in 2015, when I was in college, I read a article on cryptocurrencies, and that time I became anti-Bitcoin in general. Till now, I am anti-Bitcoin. I have zero Bitcoin, and I don't think Bitcoin will scale. There are other application protocols which scale. And then I started reading altcoins, etc., etc. Came across BioCoin. Those guys were in Delhi that time. I was studying in Delhi, so met Atulya from there, and that's how it started. So these guys are good friends of mine. I help them here and there with stuff wherever they have blogged. So yeah, so that is around me. What about you, Kevin?
Sure. So I come from a cybersecurity background. I've used to specialize in cyber investigation, and I worked for about 18 different countries, law enforcement agencies. And I came across Bitcoin in 2011 when we were investigating a case of the drug mafia using Bitcoin for payments. This was at the time of Silk Road. So that's when I first heard. And then 2015 onwards, I got into the space full time, and I'm a blockchain architect. And I've developed applications for about 37 banks, various blockchain solutions. And this year, I'm rolling out my own crypto, my own blockchain and crypto project, which is called Wrap Token, where we are trying to bring all the world's assets on 10 blockchains, including intellectual property, real estate, commodities, equities, all those kinds of things. So yeah, that's my background.
What about you, Kevin? Like,
yeah, I can't remember how many years ago it was. A long time ago, though. Back when you ordered your pizzas and stuff with Bitcoin and all that type of stuff. But friends of mine, they had an article, and I said, look, we can take our Linux machines and we can make Bitcoin. So I did that for a little while, and I was like, this is about like the most boring thing in the world. So I'm walking away from this. Those three friends now are very wealthy because they had about 1,000 coins. And yeah, they did quite well. And like I keep laughing and saying, it's like, you know what? I should have stuck with them guys because they're all retired now and have yachts and all kinds of stuff. So those types of things. But no, mainly my background's all in military, government. I'm retired Navy and stuff like that. And we used to break into pretty much networks around the world as part of the government red team projects. So I did that 25 years ago. So I've been doing it way before most people even talked about calling it penetration testing and stuff like that. So what I try to help clients with them to get them to understand is I don't care what, and that's what I'll talk about my responses. I don't care what the technology is. We're running it on protocols that was never designed to be anything this big. So we still have the same problems we've had forever, and that is we can't get the basics right because everybody's worried about all the nation states and government actors, but they're not doing the fundamentals. So the frustrating thing for me is you get all these big companies, enterprise networks, and they get taken down by ransomware. That should never happen. If you get taken down by ransomware, you got a poorly designed network, right? So I tell everybody I was part of the U.S. Navy's project when we first put internet access to U.S. Navy ships at sea and TCP/IP over satellite. And by doing that, we opened the entire world pretty much to these Navy warships were on the internet. So hackers saying, oh, wow, these ships are on the internet, so we're going to attack them and all that type of stuff. But the thing was, we didn't put the missile systems on the same segment as the internet. So why is people doing that with their modern day data, especially in the cryptocurrency world, right? All these people sharing all that data on the same network as everything else. Remember, this whole network protocol was designed as a principle of trust. It was last updated in the 80s. So here it is on this huge scale now, and nobody's doing anything to protect it. So that's the frustrating thing for me is watching all these cases, Colonial Pipeline, for example, here in the U.S., stuff like that. That's just poor network design. If anybody says, oh, we got hit by a sophisticated attack, stuff like that, what is it? 65 to 90% in the last 10 years are all basic fundamental attacks. Click here, phishing email. So I wrote a book on deception because I'm like, you know what? We can't stop it. We can't stop it. So since we can't stop it, let them in. But as long as we let them in and we control the path they take, it's a win for security. So that's what my latest book is on, is putting decoys and triggers. So with cryptocurrency, it's perfect where we put a decoy or trigger around the network. When you hit it, it's like a mine. I know you're on that network segment. Now I start marshaling my defenses or moving the data and stuff like that. So we've got like 300 of them in the Warner Brothers studios. They have like 300 decoys. So when ransomware hits a decoy, you can identify where it's at, and at least
you're talking about honeypots, basically. What we used to
similar to a honeypot, but it used to be a concept of a honeypot, but we call it a decoy trigger. Yeah, same thing. And it really, the nice thing is it flips the advantage to us, the defender, for the first time, because all I need is one packet. Once I get one packet, I know you're on my network. Yeah.
That's amazing.
It's funny because everybody still wants to go out and buy product X, product Y, and they keep getting breaches, right? Because they're not doing the fundamentals right. And that's a frustrating thing for me. It like goes back to the fundamentals: segmentation, isolation, inbound, outbound traffic, very simple stuff to do. But no, everybody just wants to throw everything on the network because, yeah, let's face it, there's a lot of revenue involved and stuff like that until you get hit. And then you get hit and say, oh, wow, we didn't think about this very clearly. And that's unfortunate, right? Because everybody's putting stuff on their network and not putting protections in place. But now I put my other hat on, which is the pen testing hat, job security. So that's okay. Keep doing it. We're okay with doing those engagements. I'd rather be helping people do defense, but you go in and talk to them about defense. No, we want a pen test. It's like, what do you baselining this? No, we don't do any of that. So why are we here doing a pen test? Why don't we help you set up a good structure that's going to work, right? Otherwise, in 6 months, you'll have the same problems that we're seeing today. But I know that's where everybody is, because especially I do a lot of work now in Africa. We're setting up these contracts in Africa and stuff like that. All they want to do is buy that product. Oh, let's go buy the product and put it in. I keep telling them, no product's made anybody secure yet. Let's put in a solid security, process and methodology and a practice and network segmentation isolation, at least help you on your road to security. No, Kevin, we want product X. We want product Y. So what are you going to do?
Are you doing this privately or are you part of an organization? I mean, are you an individual?
I have my own company, Cyber2 Labs. Yeah.
That's nice. Very nice to hear.
Yeah.
I'd love to
and
connect
I have
with
another
you on
company.
LinkedIn. Can I just can
you
just ping me your full name or your LinkedIn address? I'll just send you a request.
Yeah, let me see if I can pull that up. So yeah, the funny thing is the government, right? So I did a lot of this work for the government and stuff like that, and they kind of know, but they went back now to, let's go buy product X, let's go product Y. And I'm like, look, we've spent years preparing this, and you're telling me you're going to go buy these products? Yeah, that's what we want. That's what we want, because we're building the first incident response center in West Africa. And it's been delayed because of COVID, but we're hoping to build it starting early next year. And because I put the first commercial security operations center in the country of Oman and the first CERT there as well. So it's like, yeah, we're trying to do it in West Africa, because a lot of people don't realize out of the 52 countries, only 4 have any monitoring in place. So our 48 countries in Africa aren't even the traffic's not even being monitored.
Wow.
So you talk about all,
Kevin,
it's
I'll just say one thing, that I am now scandalized, and basically so much things you have done. I now see myself as I have not done anything in life.
You're 25, man. You still got time to go. Why are you being so hard on yourself? You're just a baby.
No.
I was laughing.
No.
I was laughing. Tell everybody, because they're like, well, how do you know that? How do you know that? So I started in the 90s. My first program class was 87. So
Wow.
yeah, it's been a while. Yeah, it's been a while.
So,
but
your full name, I'll just look you up on LinkedIn.
I'm doing it now. I'll put it in the chat window for you.
Okay.
I found it. I had to find it. I'm still waking up. It's like.
So, Kevin, now the first question probably to you is that, why do you think cybersecurity is important for crypto? Like it's an obvious question, but the obvious answer is that you need to secure your wallets, which has tokens, etc., etc. But I want to know, apart from token securitization, security point of view, why do you think the mainnet, sidenet, why cybersecurity important for a blockchain in general, and crypto? We all know the obvious answers.
Well, it's funny because I kind of just talked about it, and a lot of people, and I'll do presentations. I do them at conferences all the time. And they're like, wow, you make it sound so simple. It is simple. It's no different than any other technology. Look at the protocol. It's binary, right? Ones and zeros. I have this nice little cool cloud picture from Shutterstock, and I post it all the time on different things because people are talking about all these latest attacks, all types of stuff. Still binary, still ones and zeros. Doesn't change. Been ones and zeros since the beginning, stuff like that. The problem is all the technologies is no different than any other technology. And I said this a little bit. When was the TCP/IP created? Dr. Vinton Cerf and Robert Kahn, 1969. A lot of people don't realize in 1969, TCP/IP was asked for by Defense ARPANET, right? DARPANET and stuff like that. They came to Dr. Vinton Cerf and said, create us a protocol that we can give reliability, TCP, and speed, UDP, right? It ends up being that. Okay. So that standard was developed in 1969, ratified in 1972. You know when the last update was? In the 80s. We're running the internet today on IPv4 for the most part. I mean, there's IPv6, but I laugh and tell everybody I was teaching IPv6 in the year 2000, telling people it's coming. What are we telling them today? It's coming. Are we there yet? I don't know. I keep laughing because I'm like, the DoD, Department of Defense, before I retired in 2005, they're like, yeah, we're going to implement it any day. And I retired. And I think 20 years later, 15 years later, I think maybe they're close. I don't know. Anyway, everybody says, do we really need it? That's another debate for another time. But the problem is, what was this protocol based on? Dr. Vinton Cerf and Robert Kahn based this protocol on one main factor. You knew who was on the network. This entire protocol, when you look at it, there's no protections in place. You have to add the third-party protections, right? So what is the protocol on? It's based on the principle of trust, right? So you've taken this protocol that was never designed to be on anything this size. Give them credit. It's scaled, right? But when you look at it at the actual level of an attacker, my job as an attacker is to map an attack surface, right? So it's a door. Well, what's a door? It's a port. So I got 65,536 possible TCP ports and UDP ports. So all these are possible attack surface. So it goes down to just like it is with anything else. All these organizations have to figure out, okay, what's our business need or mission need, business in the most case of cryptocurrency, and let's run principal least services, least privileges. It's the basics. It goes back to the beginning. Why run something you don't need when it adds to your risk, right? And that's the thing I try to explain to my clients. There's no such thing as a secure network. It doesn't exist. It will never exist because we've got it running on protocols that was never designed to be this type of size. So because it's built on that principle of trust and that continues to this day, what do we have to do? We have to add protections on top of it. So nothing on an enterprise network should be single factor authentication. You got to use multi-factor authentication. I work with the FBI out here in California a lot, and we got a technique. I don't know if it's hit you guys yet, but it was into cryptocurrencies where it all started, business email compromise, right? Business email compromise. And then we got the SIM cloning. If you have ever had any attacks, and probably you have, Ross, because you said you work with these different types of investigations where people are cloning a SIM card. So when we use the multi-factor authentication, you've got the SIM card. We have a case out in California, a large charitable organization. They actually cloned the SIM card to the CFO, stole 400,000 from the company, right? Stuff like that. So it all goes back to that foundation and that fundamentals. If the organization, especially in crypto, if it's required for their business, they are going to do it. So they have to try to start thinking about, okay, do we have the basics and fundamentals correct in the first place? Is that cryptocurrency network separate from the data, right? It used to always be the users and data were separate. For some reason, the enterprises have blend them all together. That's a huge mistake, but it's like, so is the industrial control system SCADA networks connected to the internet. But when I chaired the oil and gas summit in 2013, all of pretty much the actual companies there told the vendors, we're going to do it. We know it's a risk, but we want to do it. You help us mitigate that risk. And we see all the problems we're having. The colonial pipelines, another example, that stuff like that. These networks were never designed to be connected, but now they are. So I always say it's a bridge. We put a bridge to the island of ICS SCADA, and now we got to deal with that. I work with companies and they're like, okay, well, we've got this computer. I said, okay, what is it? Windows 2000, not that long ago. Electronic holding company, big company, right? Big country. Okay, Windows 2000, we got some concerns with that stuff. Remember, most of these networks are standalone. And that says, okay, what service pack do you have installed on it? And the answer was, what's a service pack? These are engineers. They don't know. We've dealt with vulnerabilities forever. We connected an area that was isolated that has a 20-year life cycle in most cases, and now it's connected to the internet. So we broke through for several oil companies. We broke through from the internet. We broke through onto the oil rig and all those types of things. Should never happen. So cryptocurrency, because they're doing all that type of stuff, things like that, they got to do the same thing. Segmentation, isolation. You got to have that stuff hidden and protected and all that type of stuff. Like I said, we didn't put missile or control navigation on the same segment as the internet. Why are we doing that with our data today? So it's like anything else. We got to get the fundamentals and the basics right? So in the organization, they got to figure out, okay, what's the requirements for business and how much protections are they actual budget-wise are willing to put in place, headache for the users, to be able to do it in as secure manner as they can. But remember, we all have the same risk, and that risk is we're running the internet on the same protocol we ran it on when it began, and now we're all on there sharing this huge medium that was never designed to scale. It wasn't designed to be where it's at, but it is. Give it credit, it's scaled. I actually met Dr. Vinton Cerf at an actual conference one time. They had a big cyber gala, and I was talking to him, and I says, why do we have 65,536 ports? Because when you start thinking about it, why did they give us all these doors, all these holes? He says, well, IP address is 32 bits at the time. We knew that we needed a source and a destination. 32 divided by 2 was 16 bits. We didn't know it was going to be on here that everybody could have 65,536 with TCP and 65,536 with UDP ways to attack you. But that's what ended up happening. But it's gotten better because most of your OSs now, when you install them, the operating systems, they turn all that stuff off. But remember, wasn't that long ago, you install an operating system that was open by default. We still have the problem with IoT devices. The IoT devices have default ports open, default username, passwords, all that type of stuff, right? So it goes back, let's just get the basics right. Once you get the basics right, then go after all that other stuff. So yeah, that's my thinking of it.
So, Kevin, probably I'll pick one thing from what you said, that nothing is secured and nothing is called as a secured network. Probably I'll ask Rohas to answer on that, because I'm like playing the devil's actor. Like, people say cryptocurrency is secured, immutable, etc., etc. But reality
Well, I figured
is,
I'd answer about a minute, and I think it went way over that. Sorry about that. Now I laugh. I see those people on the news shows, and they're like, "Oh, we got 10 seconds left. Hurry up!" I'm like, "Wow, that went by
so
fast."
that's
Okay.
all. That's all marketing stuff. Like, it's immutable, non-hashable, secured network, etc., etc.
Yeah.
But Rohas, what's your opinion when Kevin said nothing is a secured network?
Okay, I quite agree with what he's saying because I do come from a slightly similar background. Now, in fact, if you look at the history of Bitcoin, when it was very, very new, somebody did find a vulnerability and generated 21 billion Bitcoin. You know, the max was always supposed to be 21 million. Years ago, someone managed to put 21 billion, which was, of course, then the block was removed and all that. Nothing in the world can be said to be 100% secure because what a human can build, another human can always break. So calling them immutable and all fine, the technology is pretty good, but there are a lot of issues that we don't realize. Like for example, when we talk about an enterprise blockchain, what we forget is that ultimately it is going to run on an operating system, right? It's not like blockchain is this Goliath sitting in the side, it's got everything with it. No, you're going to first set up a network. Then you're going to set up an operating system. Then you're going to connect it to the blockchain. Then you're going to connect it to applications, mobile applications, web applications. Along the way, there are so many places that vulnerabilities could strike. So, for example, if I'm logging into an exchange which is holding my crypto, but somebody manages to steal my password and OTP, it doesn't matter anymore how secure the system is because now they have my credentials and they can just move my money out. The same thing if I'm using a wallet which is even offline, if those credentials are hacked, or I'm sitting in a coffee shop and somebody does a man in the middle attack, well, he could take everything away, right? It doesn't matter how secure the end is. But in the middle, if someone is able to hack in, so we used to do packet sniffing once upon a time, really, really long time ago. That still happens. We talk about phishing attacks. The first time in my life, I think I demoed a phishing attack to public, must have been 21 years ago, if not more. The same thing would work even today. A fake email with a fake link to a website which looks very genuine, and you steal the user credentials. So what we have got to stop thinking about is this so-called immutability and actually look at the user level. Does the user understand how to keep himself secure? And that is where I think education is probably the best thing to do. Educate people about what really happens at that level and how they can protect themselves. I would say that's where we should begin.
Actually, I'll pick again from what you said. Like, what can be, like, let's say I'm a layman, I don't know how this works, like, and I'll use this forum to educate folks also, that how do you can protect yourself? Like, I have some like $2,000-3,000 of cryptocurrencies in an exchange. How do I protect my cryptocurrencies from this
Either I'm
attacks?
frozen or your screens are frozen. Not sure what.
I think Rohit,
Yours is frozen, but mine's not.
yeah. Can you hear us,
I
Rohit?
think we might have lost him.
Yeah. So probably he'll reconnect. So Kevin, to you, how do a layman like me?
It's very simple. Multi-factor authentication. We've already talked about it, right? So any of your accounts that's got finances, not just cryptocurrency, anything that's got finance related information, you got to have more than one factor authentication. Now, if you use your mobile as your second factor of authentication, I told you about the SIM cloning, and that's a huge attack. And it was into cryptocurrencies where it started, but now we're seeing it all over the, especially in California, we see quite a few of those, right? So yeah, he must have logged out. I'm going to log back in. The thing is you have to put in multi-factor authentication. So right now, anybody's listening to this, or if you yourself, you have any account and you said you got a wallet, you have things like that. If you have any account that's set up with single-factor authentication, change it today. You got to have multi-factor authentication, because every time you log in with username and password, that password's stored in a database somewhere. So how secure is that? As Rohas was saying, is exactly right. Everything's on an operating system. So how secure is that operating system, right? It's the same with the VPN. When you get a virtual private network, how secure is the endpoint? Nothing is secure if the endpoint's not secure. So that's the thing we have to remember here. And on your, like you said, you gave me the example of the wallet, and then we'll let Rohas see, he's back again. You said you can't have anything with finances in it today and use single factor authentication. It just makes no sense to have single factor authentication. You just can't do it. And a perfect example, I mean, like I said, I'm retired U.S. military. The Office of Personnel and Management a few years ago was hacked, the database. So they hacked the database of all the passwords, all the clearances, the military secret, top secret, all that stuff. Everybody's details were all compromised out of that database because it was single factor authentication with a password. You can't do that in the modern day. There's no way you should have anything related to anything that's of protection with a single factor authentication. Last I'll say on this, I'll let you actually talk to Rohas on it. Same with the cloud. But I laugh because probably 10 years ago, at least 10 years ago now, maybe longer than that, if you went to the hacking conferences, Black Hat, DEF CON, stuff like that, we had entire tracks dedicated to hacking the cloud. And now everybody's at the cloud. The hackers have been waiting for you forever. So you better have multi-factor authentication set up, and you put it in the cloud. You better have strong encryption. Otherwise, just consider it lost. And I've been telling my clients that for years. You put it in the cloud, just consider it lost. So make sure you put the strongest encryption, strongest authentication in place that you can. Same with your currencies, right? Your cryptocurrencies, you better put in as strong as authentication, multi-factor authentication you can, because any single factor authentication, we've already seen the Yahoo breach. All these companies have all had their databases breached. So because of that, don't do anything single factor authentication. So if you have anything on that wallet that you can access with one single factor, change it today. And I'll turn it back over.
So just for everyone's reference, what multi-factor authentication is that it's basically your ID password, then either an OTP validation or a Google Authenticator validation or any third multi-factor. I have not seen, like there might be some, but these are the most common multi-factor authentication. People have more than 2 levels of authentication that can be OTP plus Google authentication. So that's a 3-level authentication. So
something
now,
that forces you to have another component to get your actual access. That's the whole key here. It's like you think you got a card and you get to something, you break it in half and give one piece to one and one piece to the other. You got to have both cards. If you don't have both cards, you can't get in. Same concept.
But OTP, like I'll not dive deep into this because that's not the topic, but I have a couple of concerns around that also. But
I hate it. I hate it. Well, wait a minute. Now let me put my hacker hat on. I love it. Then I'll put my security hat on. I hate it. But yeah, single sign-on. I fought that in the military 20 years ago when they come on and told me, "Oh, we're going to sign it once and we're going to never have to sign it again." I said, "Are you kidding me? Who come up with this plan?" But anyway, I'll be quiet.
So now we also hear stories of folks losing their hardware wallets here and there, etc., etc. So I'll just start with Rohit this time. What do you think? Like this is all when stuff is online, you can do multi-factor, whatever. How do you do when stuff is offline?
Sure.
Like paste when your tokens are in a pen drive or somewhere here and there.
Sure. So, in fact, personally, I'd like to share a small experience. So, when Bitcoin was very new, I tried mining. I mined a little bit, and then when I shifted my laptop, I deleted those because at that time I never thought Bitcoin would become so valuable. I thought it's like some joke. Now
we all did. That's why we're working. The ones that didn't are all not working and laughing at us. They're all laughing at us. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Okay. So now the point I'm saying that is when we have a mobile app from a bank, and if we delete the app, our money doesn't go anywhere because our money is with the bank and the app is simply a way for us to interact with that money. But when we talk about crypto, in most cases, the private keys which actually control the crypto are on our app. Of course, if it's an exchange, then it's not like that, but then we are trusting them. So that's a custodial environment where we are trusting the exchange to keep our crypto, but that's not safe in the long run. Now, when I have my private keys with me, what I have to remember is If for whatever reason that app is deleted and I've not backed up stuff, my crypto is gone. So that's the first thing I want crypto investors to remember. If you don't have your keys, it's not your crypto. Or as they say, not your keys, not your crypto. So ideally, I would recommend people to use HD wallets, hierarchical deterministic wallets. So what happens in that is a 12-word seed is generated. So it's 12 random looking words. Now imagine if that is hashed, and then every time you create new key pairs, you are incrementing a number to that hash. So this hash is next to impossible for someone to guess. Then you keep adding a counter to it, and it generates unlimited private public key combinations for you. So now instead of you having to back up those 30, 40, 50 key pairs, you back up one thing, that 12 word node, seed node. Once you keep that seed phrase safe with you, you are always able to recreate those public private keys. Having said that, if you're storing a lot of crypto for the long run, then I would say the safest would be a paper wallet, where you would store your private public key pair on a piece of paper. You can actually write it down, take a few copies, store it in physically secured locations, and absolutely keep nothing of that online. So you've got to take a call depending upon how much crypto you have and how long a term do you want to actually keep it for. So HD wallets, very good. Paper wallets, probably the best. Would you agree with that, Kevin? Do you have anything to say on that?
No binary. Yeah, what's the most secure way you could do it? Don't have it in binary ones and zeros. Yeah, goes back to the old school. It's funny because I know the U.S. was working on it for a while. I haven't played with it in a while. I haven't worked with any clients on that, but they were going back to relays and switches and not computer controlled valves and switches for important industrial control systems. That was a big movement. I don't know how far they got on because, like I said, I worked with clients, but that's what you got to think about. Anytime you put it in a digital form, ones and zeros, and that's why you mentioned investigations, especially. That's why you can't tell the original from the copy. Ones and zeros are ones and zeros. So there's no way to secure ones and zeros completely. The old way, well, yeah, you have a paper, you have a hard copy, you can carry it. And remember the old movies you see, the briefcase, you carry the attaché case, you got it around your wrist, you handcuff and stuff like that. That's the most secure way of doing it. Yeah, it's not convenient, but are we looking at security? We're looking at convenience. And that's always that trade-off for the actual enterprise. So anybody who's setting up these exchanges, all that type of stuff, they have to remember how much, risk are they willing to accept? Because if they're going to go the traditional way that most do, and Rohas mentioned, but it's exactly that. It goes back to, if you look at the attacks, 86% in 2019 were phishing emails. The initial vector was a phishing email. Click a link. We've learned nothing in all these years. We go all the way back to the 419 Nigerian scams that started way back when. They still work today because remember, for the attacker, all I need is one person clicks and I win. And that's why I talked about deception and stuff like that, because we just need one packet. And we got to accept the fact somebody's going to click, right? I always love, because I do a presentation, I talk about Nuremberg University. It was 78% of the people interviewed. They said they know it's risk and it's dangerous and it probably might end up a hack, but if they want it, they're going to click it. And they've said that. They've said they're going to click it. And I think we mentioned as well, anytime the user can actually control or circumvent security, it's a bad thing. But think about it. In most cases, we still have that today. When you go to a website that's not secure, it says, hey, I can't trust this website. How many people is going to say no and not go there? They're all going to proceed to the website, stuff like that. That's why the clicks and the links and the social engineering, hacking the humans so successful. We can't stop it. If we stop it, we'd all be out of jobs probably. So it's probably a good thing we can't stop it. But, think about it. If you could put a patch in somebody where they go to click, it wouldn't let them click. But they've tried all that. There's always the human nature of curiosity. So a lot of investigations, I'm sure you've had some of those as well. They all start with that same factor. Somebody clicked. I do just a little security awareness training with a government agency, 3-letter agency, can't tell you the actual letters. And it's not the big ones, FBI, those types of things, but it's the 3-letter agency, and they don't want you ever to know who works for them. And we do the training, and they do the phishing campaigns where they'll send out emails once a month, stuff like that. And we train and we tell them how to try to figure it out. Somebody always clicks. There's never 100% success rate where somebody didn't click. And that's the thing we have to understand. So when it comes to their security, especially the cryptocurrency, stuff like that, if they've got the users and the data, everything all sharing the same segment, they're going to have problems. But I know that's what everybody does. I always laugh and tell everybody, when you first started virtualization, and some of us been around long enough to remember, we had 3 main networks. We'd have a switch with the users, the data, and the admin. You never blended those three. But today, nobody does it. Nobody does it today. They don't actually set it up and separate. So we have all the users and data on the same segment. Yeah. But now put my hat on, hacker hat, job security, so it's okay. We want people to do it, but if they don't, it's okay, because we'll go do pen tests. Like I said, I'd rather, when I go into an organization, help them with security, baseline, secure code review, stuff like that. Nope, they always just want a penetration test. Why? Because they got that checklist, they got that requirement for their compliance, and they're going to get that pen test regardless if they got the things in place. So it's like 6 months later, come back, they got the same problems because they didn't have a process in place. Yeah. And now, in more than ever, cryptocurrencies, they got to have a process, right? They got to establish a process. Rohas mentioned that well, where you start setting it up, you got to think about, because it's not the problem with all the blockchain, all that stuff. That's great, but what security is the platform it's on? It's I used to always get into PKI. Anybody remember public key infrastructure? And we're putting PKI in for some of the Africa clients. And I'd always get into it and says, I don't care. You can have the best PKI in the world, but if that operating system compromised, doesn't mean anything. Because I can take you're going to sign it with a key. Well, I'm just going to take my key and sign it with that. And now it's game over. Because computers were developed when nobody thought about this stuff, right? So we're all still trying to catch up with security. Yep.
So essentially, just for everyone's, what you can say, for everyone's understanding, that if you are keeping stuff on your hardware wallet, just understand that if that goes, your tokens holding goes. Unlike what Rohesh mentioned, that if you are using a net banking a mobile application, if you remove that, that does not mean your money goes. But unlike in cryptocurrency. So now my follow-up question here is that how do exchange, like, do you think exchange should be in a wallets business? How do you decouple exchange versus wallet? Should exchange give wallets as an additional service? What can exchange do? Because there has been a lot of chatter that exchange are the worst place to keep your tokens. So what can exchanges do? And then what can people who have who have significant holding? Significant is again subjective, and that depends from person to person. For me, $100 can be significant. For you, $10,000 can be significant. So how can investors, traders, what you can say, may make their work around? So that is again my second question, and we'll start with Rohit.
Sure. So what we've got to remember is that we are supposed to use exchanges for trading, right? Not for holding. So if I've decided that I'm going to be selling my crypto over the next few days, then I would move it into the exchanges and then monitor the prices. And whenever I feel the price is right, I can sell or I can buy. But the moment I feel that I'm going to now hold this crypto for a longer period, I would say it depends on how much money is involved and how significant that is for you. But I'd say if you're going to keep it for more than a week, maybe you should consider moving it out of the exchange. So you've got to realize, like, some people are what we call as the hodlers. So they are going to hold on to their crypto for many, many years. It makes no sense for them to keep that on an exchange. In that scenario, you have to move it out and keep it somewhere. But if you're a regular trader and every couple of days you're waiting for the ups and downs and you're constantly trading, then you keep it in the exchange. Now, if an exchange starts to provide wallet services, it doesn't make sense to me. Because what we've got to remember is, when it's your own wallet, it must be, you must have custody of your keys, right? That's the critical point. Forget about hardware, software, forget all those terms. Just ask one question: who has control over the private keys for this crypto? As long as that control is with me, whether it is my application or my piece of paper, that's good for you. But if that private key is with someone else, no matter what you call that kind of a wallet, that's not the way to be. So for short term, it's fine because you're going to keep trading. So the exchange makes sense. Slightly medium term, move it out and have it in an HD wallet, I would strongly recommend. If you're holding in very few addresses, say you have just a couple of Bitcoin addresses, paper wallet makes sense. But the moment you have 50 and 60 addresses, paper wallets are not going to make sense anymore. So then go with an HD wallet and just make sure you back up the seed phrase on a piece of paper and store that paper very carefully in a couple of places. I would recommend that approach.
Kevin, what about you? What are your
Yeah,
thoughts?
because it's exactly what you said. You decouple it, right? So it's like, think about what everybody's doing now with password safes. It's the same concept. So when you have that master password to the password safe, you should never have it stored anywhere in your digital form. You should have it written down somewhere and securely keep that secure somewhere. Well, for me, I like doing like little, I got little sayings and stuff. So when I see it, I know exactly what it is because I know what the saying means and stuff like that. Everybody has different mechanisms, stuff like that. But the problem is, just like with anything else, when you put it into an exchange or, any one of these places, you're going to have it stored. How secure are they? You don't know. This is the whole thing. It's the same with the cloud. You're giving all your trust into this other type of thing. So if your portfolio is huge, you're trusting this huge portfolio with the entity you don't even, you're not auditing their security. So who's auditing their security? Unfortunately, the majority of these sites get stood up really fast because it's very lucrative. They get a bunch of people on there, and security is an afterthought. And they don't have any security. So when hackers get in there and start looking at it, they breach it pretty easily, just like the OPM hack, stuff like that. And nobody realizes until 6 months later, 9 months later, and by then it's too late. All this stuff's already compromised. If they want to take you out, they've already taken you out. And before you know it, there's nothing there. So yeah, the more you can decouple it, as we've been talking about, the better. But it's always frustrating people because they're like, what do you mean? I got to write it down? I was told never to write it down. Yeah, we're in a different age. We're in a different era than we was back in those days, because the complexities that you have to put in for your passwords and your authentication, stuff like that, you can't memorize all that. Yeah, I know I'm always doing that. Oh, I forgot my password again. Forgot my password. I'm clicking on that doggone link. Forgot my password, right? So yeah. But
So one thing I
still,
want to add,
anything in digital, real quick, anything in digital form is at risk. If you got it in paper form, it's not at risk unless somebody comes and robs your house. So yeah.
one thing I wanted to add, another thing we've got to remember. So even though we've got the HD wallet on our mobile phone, we still need to secure the phone. So if you're going to click on a link which came to you in a WhatsApp, or you're going to download an app which is malicious, everything's gone, right? So then the HD wallet cannot do anything for you because the guys got into your phone. And please remember, Android, iOS can both be hacked. It's a misconception that Apple cannot be hacked or iOS cannot be hacked. Everything can be. And another thing that people sometimes make mistakes is they download the wrong app. So, sometimes you don't realize that, okay, you're looking for Trust Wallet, but there may be something else which looks very similar, the logo is similar, and this actually happens. You end up downloading a malicious version of it, and then no matter what you do, everything's gone because the app itself was malicious. So you've got to be careful. And it's very easy to end up losing your crypto. It's very, very easy.
So as Kevin talked about, SIM cloning, app cloning also happens. And the biggest issue is that these apps are not published on Play Store. You get random APK files from somewhere, and then you end
That's the
up
that's the most dangerous thing. You should never download APKs. You have to go
files.
through an app which already has millions of. See, let's look at it this way. You're going for the Trust Wallet. You know a lot of people have used it over so many years. How can it not show you a few million downloads and hundreds of thousands of reviews? If it doesn't show, then there's something wrong. You're looking at the wrong app. So you have to, and APKs never ever use it. I mean, it doesn't make any sense, right? It's like some random person sending you an executable or a DMG file and you're just going to set it up. I mean, that's the most dangerous thing. I mean, that's like the original Trojan horse where you saw this big horse made of wood and you brought it into your city. I mean, it's as dangerous as that. Please never download APKs or EXEs or random DMG files.
That's why they have hashes, but nobody checks them. The SolarWinds hack proves that. If you read about the SolarWinds hack, the supply chain attack, it actually, but why, again, I go back to old school. Why the heck is your developer source code on a publicly accessible network? Don't even get me started on that one. But you're building and you're building your builds and they're all on a public network. Are you kidding me? Your dev builds are on a public network, but okay, that's fine. But the hashes weren't matching because they had been compromised, but nobody's validating hashes. I mean, hashes are there for validation, but let's be honest. If you're in Linux, how many of you sit there and do apt install and all that type of stuff? Do you ever validate the hash? No, we're all, it's fine. Apt install. That's why I'm a Unix guy, because I take the source code and build everything from scratch. I don't even like doing apt install or anything like that unless I'm in a hurry. It's the same concept with your phone. Every app you put on your phone is more attack surface, right? I know I shock my clients when I tell them I don't do any banking on the phone. Are you kidding me? No, I mean, everybody thought, and it was funny because Rohas mentioned it's like, oh yeah, iOS is so much more secure. What about the website we found with all those actual vulnerabilities and 0 days on all the different iOS platforms? It was just nobody's telling you because it's lucrative business. So you don't want to tell people that, hey, I got a hack against iOS, especially when the U.S. government's using the iOS. Let's just keep reaping the profits of that stuff like that. So yeah, I never on a phone. I hate apps on a phone, and I don't do any banking on a phone. No, don't do it. Don't trust them. Nope. At least if it's a computer, Linux or whatever, I can harden the kernel and do a lot more stuff that I can do on my phone. So that's why I do. Or we do at Cyber 2 Labs, we build custom secure communication devices for some clients where we build a custom kernel. Yeah. Yep.
So there are a couple of user questions. So I'll pick one.
Okay.
So how this security is different from hardware wallet like Ledger and Treasury? Is that this security I am not able to contemplate what he's talking about, but I guess
he's talking about hardware wallets and how they are more secure or less secure than, say, an HD wallet or a paper wallet. See, one big problem with hardware wallets is the support for the number of cryptos. So the number of cryptos supported on hardware wallets is very little. So as long as you are in the core cryptos like BTC, ETH and all the hardware wallets will support. But when you go for a slightly offbeat or exotic crypto, hardware wallets may not give you that support. Secondly, the problem with the hardware wallet, it gives you a false sense of security. You're taught to believe that the hardware can never be hacked, but that's incorrect. We have seen in the past, see, as long as that wallet is lying in your drawer, physically in your cupboard, nobody can hack it. But ultimately, you have to connect it somewhere, right, to do the transaction. At that time, hardware wallets have also been compromised. Another thing is that hardware wallets are expensive. And people sometimes don't back them up thinking it's hardware. But what if the hardware wallet gets broke? I mean, it breaks. Physically, it breaks. Or you end up dropping it and something goes wrong. So I'm not a fan of hardware wallets. Firstly, they're expensive. Secondly, they don't support all the cryptos. Thirdly, people go into a false sense of security, so they don't actually do their backups. Fourthly, even hardware wallets can be hacked. So I would say the best two things to do are an HD wallet on your phone, and for long-term storage, paper wallets. I would say a combination of those would probably be the best.
And this is given that you don't trade often, you are a hodler by nature, and you are like it, and you have significant holding, and significant depends from person to person.
Absolutely. So if you are a trader, then there's no point moving it out because you're constantly going to play with that. And there are some exchanges which first ask you to enter a username password, then they send you two OTPs, one to your mobile phone through an SMS and one to your email account through an email. And you need to enter both of those. Now, while I totally agree, even that's not 100%, but it's good. It's getting better. I mean, there is a password and then there are two different OTPs on two different devices, ideally. Of course, then you must remember one thing, that don't keep your email logged into your phone, because if you lose your phone, your email also opens there. So you've got to think about all this, that, okay, my email somewhere else, my phone is different, so that even if somebody steals my phone, they would get one of those OTPs, not the second one. So, I mean, it's tough, but then what else can you do? I mean, that's the only thing you can
now
do.
This is a chicken and egg problem, like phone
we call it out of band. You just got to make sure it's out of band, right? One of them has to be out of band, because the thing with the phone, how many of you log out of your email? Almost everybody leaves their email logged in on their phone. So if you make both of them on your phone, then yeah, it's not going to do you any good.
So like one thing I can recommend, a simple thing is have another email account which is only for OTP.
Just for that.
Never give anyone that, so nobody communicates with you on that. So that needn't be logged into your phone. That could be logged in somewhere else, and it's only for OTPs. See, it's your money, right? You have to be careful about it. Otherwise, if the money is gone, it's never coming back.
Because if you see, the irony is that there are OTP based authentication, then there is a Google authenticator which sits in your phone only. So if your phone is lost, that guy, if he knows, and the worst part is Google now has passwords in apps also. Like if you are on Android, Google can pre-fill your ID password basis app. So if someone has penetrated your first level of authentication, which can be a Face ID or a fingerprint scan, he literally has everything he wants, and he can withdraw money from whatever apps you have, money apps, personal finance apps you have on your phone. This is over and above crypto. Like crypto has the most level of authentication and authorization. We know apps don't even have that. Normal bank apps and personal finance apps.
Well, that's
So
why
my,
what I tell everybody I recommend is put a flag on an account. Any transaction greater than a certain amount, you get both text message and an email. Because there's a chance something's going to be breached. Yeah. So just flag your account transactions.
So anecdotally, a very interesting thing happened 10 days ago. So some amount like approximately $5 got debited from my bank account. And I got furious, like, how did this happen? Like, I did not did a transaction and it was via Apple Pay. So then I realized that, then I called the bank, the call center, etc., payment gateway, Apple Pay, many back and forth. And then my cousin says that you had subscribed to XYZ subscription and now it got
started auto charging you. I hate them things. Apple Pay is the worst because they freaking auto charge you all the time. Like, get a bill. What the heck is these? Oh, you signed up one time and it goes forever.
Yeah,
to get
exactly.
it turned off is not an easy thing. I know. Yeah. So yeah, that's how they get you. Yeah.
So probably
sign up for a free trial, but nothing's free. It's free for 30 days, and then they start charging you, and you realize, oh heck, I forgot to turn that off. Yeah.
Correct. So how do you, like, now we have talked how do you secure, etc., etc. How do you take backups once things go south? Like, let's say I had $2,000-3,000 on an exchange, on a hard wallet or a secured wallet on online, on the net. It got lost, something happened, keys got broken. How do I take backups? What's the next step?
Sure. So what you could do is, like I said, if you are using exchanges, one piece of advice is don't use too many exchanges. So I know people who use 10 and 15 different exchanges trying to get the best price, but then you have to remember 15 different sets of usernames and passwords and all. So I would ideally recommend use two or maximum three. So I usually stick to two domestic exchanges because I need INR trading, for example, and say one international exchange. So I know there are just three things I need to do. Ideally, go for exchanges that do give you two OTPs, one on your email, one on your phone. So then ideally what you have to do is just remember that there are three different username passwords. So once you write that down, you're sorted. However, when you're now going to move your money into an app, in that scenario, I would recommend go for something like the Trust Wallet. Disclaimer, I'm not saying that it is the best, but it is an open source wallet. It's been very popular for quite some time. In my personal experience, it's one of the best, and it's an HD wallet. So you need to remember that it is going to generate 12 words for you. And that's going to be done right in the beginning. You need to write those 12 words down, the short words. There's nothing else you ever need to back up. If something goes wrong tomorrow, you can reinstall, enter those 12 words, and it can regenerate the keys for you because it's called a hierarchical deterministic wallet. So it's a hierarchy of keys it builds based on those 12 words. So as long as those 12 words, you've noted them down and kept it on a piece of paper, safely kept, unless someone breaks into your house, they're not going to be able to do much to you. So exchanges, username, passwords need to be stored. Always remember, keep a separate email account for OTPs that you can note down the username, password, that also on a piece of paper. And for your HD wallet, like Trust Wallet, just note down the 12 words. That's about it. You should be sorted.
Kevin, you
very
have
important for those. Just one thing. No, I agree with all that. But remember, when you have multiple accounts, don't have the same password in multiple accounts. I've seen people do that. That's old school way, right? We all, I'm guilty as well in the past. Is like, yeah, everybody, oh yeah, I got all these accounts, and then you actually have more than one password in the same place. Yeah, don't do that. I know people do it.
I'll just probably add that in like probably regular interval of time, if you are using Chrome or Mozilla, clear caches and cookies of your browser.
Yeah.
Because some websites, whichever you log in, are not closed source. They are open source. If someone inspects, they get all your details. That has happened in the past. So clear your cache cookies at periodic interval of time. Like, yeah, that's just another, what you can say, hygiene factor. Yeah. So guys, probably we are up on time. Any closing thoughts? One minute each.
Sure. So in summary, we've got to remember something very simple. Blockchain may be strong, but it's one piece of the whole puzzle, right? Blockchain doesn't run itself. It needs hardware and software and applications and so many things in it. So just because it's blockchain, so if you're a developer or enterprise, just because it's blockchain doesn't give you all the security. There are so many other pieces. It's like a jigsaw puzzle you need to put together. And as an individual, you have to remember the laptop has a browser, the laptop has an operating system, and it has its own problems. The phone has its own vulnerabilities. So we can't afford to just ignore all that. oh, I have an iOS phone, so I'm safe. No, phishing still exists as a problem. Don't randomly click on links. The same thing that you've been hearing for 20 years, start doing them. Okay, we've been hearing forever. It's time to start doing them. That's what I'd like to say.
Exactly. And I just exactly what I said. I'll add to that as well. Yeah, it's the basics. Start with the basics. I got so many clients that are chasing the advanced persistent threat and all these other types of things because it's in the news, right? And yeah, it is nation state, government backed, all that type of stuff. But let's get the basics right. If you get the basics right, you block the majority of these attacks. And that's the most frustrating thing for me because the media and everybody else makes it look like the hackers are these super good. They're too good. One of the things, and I talk about a lot in my book, I know my network. I designed it. So start remembering that. You design it. You design your protections. You design everything in place. You know it better than any attacker does. So if you start setting that up and identifying the choke points, if you will, of where people could come in and out, and I said the mine analogy, if you put those mines in those points and stuff like that, even if they get in, they're going to be identified. And that's the reality when we have to accept today. You got to accept the fact that there's going to be a breach. So if you've got we talked about the exchange or whatever stuff like that, just accept the fact they could be breached. And if they're breached, do you have that out of band stuff we've been talking about, the multi-factor authentication set up where your credentials are still safe? Because if any credentials in one location and all your credentials in that one location, we talked about the phone, it's going to be game over if there's a breach. And we've all been there because we've all been part of breaches. Yahoo breach 1 billion accounts and stuff like that. So just realize that nobody can protect your data as well as you can. That's the most important thing to remember. You are the actual source of the most protection of your data. So you can set up, as we said, Rohas mentioned the offline paper, all that type of stuff. You got to start thinking about that. You got to get the fundamentals and the basics right. Don't listen to the vendors that say, go buy product X, Y, and Z, because if the foundation isn't there, then it's going to be compromised anyway. I'll leave one last thing here. Everybody's up here in our apps. We're talking about all our apps. As an attacker, if I can get you at layer 3, the network layer, I own the rest of the layers. So it doesn't matter what you have in your apps. So that's the way I teach people when we break into networks, we break at the lowest level possible. So just remember that.
Yeah. Thanks, folks. Thanks for taking your time. Kevin, especially you, it's been like, 3:15 a.m.? PST?
Yeah, I think it's 3:22 a.m. now.
Yeah,
so now I'll do a little bit of work and go to the gym. That's fine. Like I said, I've been doing European time training for the last couple of weeks, so I'm used to being up all night.
And by the way, Kevin, I realized we already connected on LinkedIn.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. I seen you said that. Yeah.
So anyway,
that's what happens when you get more and more people, right? You get more and more people, and you lose track of who all you're connected to.
Yeah, thanks.
Let's keep in touch. Nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Take care.
Nice chatting with you, folks.
Yeah,
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.